Hello everybody, welcome to, well, I guess a tier list video. I've been playing a lot, and I mean a lot, of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. It's a really good game, and I know that, I mean, I played a lot of the original. I played both Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team. Not that there's that much of a difference, but yes, I played a lot of those games, and I just wanted to go through and play it again, and I'm so glad that it's come out for the Switch, because I love playing games on the Switch. And I would love to record them too, but I don't have the proper equipment to do that. So I guess instead we're going to talk about sort of an aspect of this game that I think a lot of people, including myself, are really interested in. Something that's not really been seen in the series before. I don't think Super Mystery Dungeon had these. Forgive me because I have not played a lot of Super Mystery Dungeon. It just wasn't a game that I was super into. I'll go back and try it again, see if my thoughts on it have changed, but that's all I have to say. And I know that DX has a lot of shared features from Super Mystery Dungeon, so you know, forgive me if I'm not as familiar as somebody else might be, but I have played a lot of the originals, Explorers. I played a little bit of Gates to Infinity as well. Yeah, but this feature I think is new to Mystery Dungeon, the Rare Qualities feature. It's replacing the IQ system, which I have my thoughts about that, but that's not what this video is about. This is going to be about discussing which rare qualities I think are very good, ones I don't think are very good, and seeing if my opinions sort of line up with what other people are thinking. I would love to get feedback on this, and I'm not going to claim to be the end-all be-all knowledge on this because, well, I haven't personally used all of these rare qualities. I haven't played certain aspects like Purity Forest yet. I don't think I'm ready for it, to be honest, but I'd love to get the chance. So I know that some of these abilities may be great for that sort of thing that I just don't recognize that because I haven't personally engaged with that part of the game yet. But I'm going to try to give a pretty holistic view. I'm looking at the main story up till you fight Rayquaza, and note that there will be spoilers in this. Sorry if I didn't make that apparent right away. But up until you fight Rayquaza, and as well as the dungeons after that. I wish I could speak a little better on those 99 floor dungeons with the level 5 initial starting level, but I have not played any of them, like Joyous Tower, Wish Cave, and Purity Forest. At least not in this version. I have played Wish Cave and Joyous Tower, at least in the original. I've not played Purity Forest. Or rather, I've played a couple floors of it and then died really quickly. But anyway, let's get started. I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. I think that that's a good way to sort of build up, see what sorts of things are good, and how certain abilities get even better than that. Also, it's great for building suspense, so people can go like, what's the best rare quality? Which one am I missing out on? No, I'm sure that if you have heard that it's a pretty good rare quality online, you'll probably see that I'm going to echo that opinion. But anyway, let's start off with the bottom. In my opinion, the worst rare quality in this game is, and if I can find it, yes, Sales Pitch. Sales Pitch sounds like it could be really good. It sounds like if you could bring in something that was super valuable, like gold ribbons, deluxe ribbons, link boxes, which sell for I think 650 poke, things like efficiency bandanas, which or efficient bandanas, not efficiency, my bad, which sell for 700 poke. I think that sounds great, and I think that if you could make that work, you could get a lot of money out of that, but in reality, you're not going to have that work out all the time. If you end up bringing a lot of those things out of your storage into a dungeon, you're really limiting what sorts of items you can bring into the dungeon, things that you might need, like an oran berry or an apple, or a heal seed, wands, orbs, etc. Like, your inventory space is very precious in this game. Like, I've played the original where I think the maximum capacity was like 24 items. Somewhere around that. And it was very constricting. I felt like I didn't have enough. It's 48 in this game. I still don't feel like I have enough. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend keeping this ability around for Pokemon that you are maining, the Pokemon that you are commonly bringing to your rescue teams. If you happen to get a Pokemon from a dungeon that has it, and you happen to be able to sell something like a held item that you're not using, or if you found a gold ribbon by chance in a dungeon, or if you don't want to keep your deluxe boxes or your pretty boxes, then it could be useful for that. But overall, like, they're not very often that you're going to want to sell anything. And that's not even to mention the fact that in the late game, like once you have all of your camps purchased, once you have pretty much the moves that you want on all of the Pokemon that you're going to be using, money is not really a hot commodity anymore. You don't really need that much money anymore. So, yeah. It's better, I guess it's better to have it than to not have any rare quality, but I don't think sales pitch is all that useful. And going with the trend of the shop ones not being that useful, the next one is bargain. I think bargain is a little bit better than sales pitch, if only because I think it's more common that you will buy items from the shop than sell them. Yes, you could get more money, technically speaking, from selling than buying, but like me personally, I don't keep things on my toolbox that I am not going to use in a dungeon. Or I will maybe keep them if I'm planning to take it to the Kecleon shop in town and sell it. Bargain is not great. Like, the price reduction is very low. I don't know exactly what percentage it is, but it can't be more than 20. Or 25. I don't know, but like it's probably, I guess I can't really speak to, like I said, I can't speak to Wish Cave, Joyous Tower, Purity Forest, but I feel like there's a small use for that, like when you can't bring money into the dungeon and you're got a very small amount of money, and you might need some things like thrown items or a seed, and you're just like, maybe you can't afford all of it, but if you had somebody with bargain, you might be able to afford another item or two. Again, it's not something I would recommend bringing on like your mains, but if you happen to find it on a Pokemon in the dungeon, not so bad. Probably the next one. I know after this one, it kind of gets a little difficult to say. Me personally, I think that the skill, and if I can find it, Forge a Path would be the next one here in this D tier. Forge a Path is really fun. I'm not going to deny that. I love the idea of just being able to run through walls as if they don't mean anything. But mechanically, it's not great. Your belly is very important in this game. It does like, what, 3 ticks of damage per step when you have 0 belly? That's pretty brutal. I'm pretty sure in the the original games, the original Rescue Team games, I think it was just 1 tick. So that could be, that's 3 times as bad. It just takes up way too much belly to do it. And also, like, the only reasons I would ever see to do this, like, instead of just having fun with it, like, as an actual mechanical strategy, is if you run into a room, you're near one of the walls, and there's a really strong enemy, like one of the ones with the sort of crest above their heads, and you're like, well, I'm not equipped to do this at all, and you can't get to one of the hallways or one of the exits before that thing will get to you, so you, like, run through the wall. Like, that's pretty much the only reason I could see to use this. Otherwise, it's kind of not that good. Maybe if you're, like, looking at the map and you're struggling to find the exit or find something that you need that's useful, but you have something like X-ray specs, or you can just see, like, enemies or a job client on the shop, then you can just walk straight to them. But even that is kind of wasteful and not super necessary. You might be able to get away with it in easier dungeons, but I mean, for that, I'd rather just click L and let the game play for me if I was, like, in that big a rush. I don't know. Yeah, it's not great. I think the only reason I would put it higher than Sales Pitch and Bargain is because you could go to Buried Relic and use this to find some treasures, and that would be pretty cool. You could find some treasures, sell them for a good amount of money, or keep them. I think you can find things like vitamins to boost your stats, which are really cool. I'm pretty sure that you can find things that are really high sell value. So you can bring, like, an escape orb and then a Pokemon with Forge a Path and just walk through, get some treasures, and escape out of the dungeon. And that could be kind of useful, but in pretty much every other dungeon, it's kind of not that good. And the last thing that I'm going to put in low tier, I would say that pretty much all the other ones above this are okay. These ones are just not that helpful. Is Blast Control. Now, Blast Control does sound like it would be kind of useful because, explosions are pretty bad. You do not want to explode. But, I just think that explosions are not that common. I think there's, like, only one. I can't even think of a dungeon where Pokemon just naturally know self-destruct or explosion. There might be one, but I'm not sure. I've never encountered it, at least up to this point in playing. So you're not going to find very much in the way of that. Blast tiles are slightly more common, but there are a lot of ways to counter blast tiles, such as having goggle specs to see them and just choosing not to walk on them. Wary Walk, which is an ability we'll talk about later, can sometimes disable traps. If you have a Pokemon with Drizzle or that can set up a rain dance, you can diffuse the floor pretty easily. I think that's how it works. I haven't tested it extensively, but I'm pretty sure that when it's raining, the floor is diffused. But anyway, and even if you do happen to explode, the explosion will only do like half of your health. I think it's half of your current health, not half of your max health. And like, that's not good, especially at higher levels when you have a lot of health. You know, doing something like 100 to 200 health worth of damage is kind of a lot, but like, even so, it's not awful. Like, you can use an Oran Berry if you're in a dire situation, or you can just walk around and heal it up. So, not great. I definitely would not recommend putting Blast Control on your team and then using a Pokemon with Self-Destruct or Explosion, because that's not a very sustainable strategy. You're going to be having to use up a lot of healing items, and also Explosion, Self-Destruct, they don't do a whole ton of damage anyway. You would much rather just use a stronger move. So yeah, these are like the 4 qualities that I say are not really that useful at all. This next one, we're going to jump up a tier, and we're going to talk about some abilities that are okay, but usually outclassed by some things, or they're just like very situational, or a part of strategies that are not super optimal. Pretty much what you would think of as like a C tier sort of ability. The first ability that I have, and you know, I'm open to change some things if, you know, some more information comes to light to me, but I think Shared Happiness is a pretty kind of not that good ability. What it does is, when you have a status, actually when your party has been afflicted with status conditions, so that could be like things like slowed, confusion, burn, poison, and etc. Any sort of status you could think of. When you use an item to heal up the status of one member of the team, it will heal all of the members of the team. And you know, that would be great if status conditions that affect the party were a lot more common. It's just that there are very, very few situations where you're going to be having multiple members of the party afflicted with status conditions. The only things I can really think of is like when you're fighting Kyogre and like there's water on the ground and all the non-water type Pokemon get slowed down. Like, I think you could cure that, but also I'm not sure if that'll even really help, because I think you'll just be given the slowed down condition on the next turn anyway. So like, you're just gonna have one of the members of your team, which is hopefully going to be one of the stronger members of your team if you're fighting Kyogre, if you're bringing 3 Pokemon in. Hopefully they would actually be good at fighting. You're going to have one member of the team dedicated to using up your heal seeds to cure that slowed condition every turn, which is just not that worth it to me. Like, you know, if you're fighting Groudon, like the magma, you can cure the burns if multiple of your Pokemon get burned, but I would just recommend either avoiding the magma or I don't know, there are going to be better ways to heal those sort of conditions, as I'm about to talk about. But like, I'm trying to think of other reasons why you would have a whole party affected. I think in, what dungeon is it? In some of the later dungeons, I think Fiery... I can't remember exactly what the name of the dungeon is. It's like Fiery Path... Not Fiery Path. Fiery Field? Yeah, Fiery Field. The one with Entei. I think that there are certain like item traps, quote unquote, that spawn Dittos, and the Ditto spawns in and gives most of your Pokemon the confused status. In that situation, in that one situation, I think this ability would be pretty helpful, but a reason why it's really low down here is because you have moves like Aromatherapy and Heal Bell, which are like 13 use moves that do this ability. And you know, I understand that it's a pretty big opportunity cost to dedicate one of your limited move slots to something like Heal Bell, but I think that it's a bigger opportunity cost to dedicate your one allotted shared happiness to as your rare quality. Your one allotted rare quality to shared happiness. There we go. That's the way to say it. Instead of a better one. And also, like, Heal Bell is great because if you use Heal Bell or Aromatherapy or any move that does the same thing as that, you don't have to bring like Pecha Berries, you don't have to bring Cherry Berries, you don't have to bring Heal Seeds or any of that. You can just bring Max Ethers to bring that move back up to full PP instead. So yeah, I think it's an okay, it could be an okay ability, but it just gets outclassed by a lot of other things. A very similar effect to this is Mind Over Matter. What Mind Over Matter does is if you step on a Wonder Tile, you will be able to cure the effect, the status effect that you have. So this could be great for things like Burn and Poison, which stay around for a long time. It means that you won't have to use a Rost or a Pecha Berry or a Heal Seed. But again, why you could just use like Heal Bell or Aromatherapy instead of this. And if you're also like, I'm just going to be adamant and not go for use one of these healing items, then just maybe just find the stairs. Like I don't think, I think Mind Over Matter could save you in some situations, but I don't think it would be, there are that many situations where it would save you, you know? I think it might be a little better in the early game when it's hard to find a Pokemon with Aromatherapy or Heal Bell. Like, I think your one option would be like a Vileplume from Great Canyon, but like still. The next thing that I have, I don't know if people are gonna agree or disagree with where I'm putting this one, but nevertheless, this is where I think it should go, is Thrown Item Boost. Thrown Item Boost is pretty good early game, not necessarily for Graveler Rocks, which I had for the longest time thought was Gravel Rocks until I watched Chugga Conroy's Let's Play. Yeah, I think he mentioned something about how a lot of people had thought that, so I'm glad it's not just me. But anyway, Graveler Rocks will go from 20 damage to 30, which is not a lot. Like, it could be useful early game, when you just need something to finish off something that you've done almost their full HP to, but you know, you don't want to use up the PP of a move, you'd rather just use a rock. Like, sure, that could do some damage. Geo Pebbles will go from, I think, 30 to 45, so it's a 1.5 times boost. It's what it looks like. And that's a little more significant, but like still not that great. Where it's really useful is for spikes, like Iron Spikes. A boost like 1.5 times. I'm not sure that it's a 1.5 time boost to Iron Spikes, but that's what I'm guessing it would be due to the Graveler Rocks and the Geo Pebbles. That's pretty strong, and because it's based on your attack power, and it also can critical hit, that's really good. I like throwing Iron Spikes with my Absol, because I like to use Absol. who's got super luck, and I put the scope lens on him, so he scores quite a lot of critical hits. Not every hit, but like for things like Night Slash and Slash, he will almost always crit. At least more than 50% of the time, it feels like. And he'll pretty often score critical hits with Iron Thorns or other thrown items that would do that. But I think the most important aspect of this is that you can't miss your thrown hits, which is really good. And you know, I'm talking about all these things that are great about it, but I'm putting it kind of low on the tier list. Why? Well, thrown items are not necessarily the best way to attack, especially when you get to the later game. Like once you're done with Rayquaza, once you're done with like Buried Relic and stuff like that, once you're going on to like Mount Faraway, Silver Trench, Far Off Sea, those sorts of dungeons, it's like you would rather be using moves that are like really strong, so like Ice Beam instead of a Geo or Pebble or an Iron Thorn. Not that they don't have uses, it's just that they're not the most like sort of optimal damage dealing thing in a lot of situations. So it's pretty good, but it's not great. The next stuff up from this are going to be things like, once we get above this sort of level, we're going to get into some things that are actually like pretty useful. And it, more so depending on your build. But the next one up I have is Narrow Focus. And what Narrow Focus does is it makes all moves 100% accurate if you're in a tunnel, or a hallway or a corridor or whatever you would call it, as long as you're not in like a room. This is not a bad ability. I think that, you know, sometimes you'll be in a tunnel and you'll run into a Pokemon that is pretty strong, or you might not have a lot of health. And you're like, okay, I could maybe kill this thing with my strongest move, but you might miss, and then you might be kind of screwed. I know I've been in that situation before, and Narrow Focus would get you out of that situation. However, fighting in a tunnel is usually not that great, because it means that your AoE moves like Blizzard, Earth Power, these moves that are very powerful, are not that effective. You know, certain things like 2-range, 4-range moves, piercing moves, so like your quick attacks, your dragon breaths, your bone meringues, your hyper beams, which I don't know if I would necessarily recommend hyper beam, but that's aside the point. Those moves are going to be pretty good in tunnels, and if you can guarantee hits on those moves, that's pretty good. But also, a lot of those moves are not inaccurate, or rather I should say they are fairly accurate. So like, it can get kind of, it's more of an opportunity cost thing. It's not a bad thing to have, but there are better sorts of builds, better sorts of strategies around. I think I would rather stay in a room and be able to use AoE attacks if things get dicey than go into a tunnel necessarily. There's also another ability that I'll get to later on that has another sort of effect where it's like bypassing accuracy checks, making it like 100% accurate. And I think that is a lot better than this one. I guess I should note that there is a strategy where you use a move called Perish Song, which has a very low accuracy, but what it will do is it will affect every Pokemon on the floor with the Perish Song status effect, which means that in 3 moves, that means 3 steps, or any combination of steps and using an attack, that Pokemon will faint. Well, I'm gonna say die because, like, I'm a gamer. Like, we all say die, but technically it's faint. But anyway, you'll kill everything on the floor, which is great for being safe with a sort of strategy. It'd be great for, like, if you're in a monster house and you have way too many enemies, especially since you can push your partners back through the tunnel. But, like, you don't get any experience for that. Perish Song is kind of a limited PP sort of use, so you'd have to bring a lot of max ethers if you're going to rely on that strategy. I don't think it's a great strategy, but I mean, if you play it right, it could be pretty safe, and narrow focus would be great for that build. So, like, I'm going to admit that it will have its use, but not necessarily my cup of tea. In the same sort of vein as being in a tunnel, I have Funnel Fun here, and what Funnel Fun will do is it increases the amount that you passively restore while walking when you're in a corridor or a hallway or a tunnel. I guess I'm just going to call it tunnel because that seems to be like what I like to call it. But anyway, this is not bad. Not bad at all, especially when you're in these higher difficulty dungeons, when you're starting to run out of healing items and you kind of need to conserve your uses of them, just in case you get into a hairy situation. You know, that's a real issue. So you would rather just try to rely on your passive healing. Funnel Fun is not bad for that. You know, if you can go into tunnels, if you can find long enough tunnels to walk through, then you'll restore health pretty quickly. Now, there's another ability that helps you restore your health passively that does not require the sort of, like, being in a tunnel. You could be in a tunnel if you wanted to with that ability, but with this one you have to be in a tunnel. So it's not that it's a bad ability, it's just that it's outclassed. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Funnel Fun's bad, but I do think it is outclassed. I would much rather have the other ability. The next one I'm gonna have is Evasive Rhythm. So what Evasive Rhythm does is every time you get hit, you increase your evasion, and I think it only lasts for the next turn afterwards. So I don't think it stacks. I don't think you get hit, get the evasion boost, and then if you get hit again on the next turn, that it would stack. I think you just get one boost. Now, evasion boost is not so bad. You could be up against an enemy that's kind of tough to deal with. Take one hit, and that does like maybe more than 50% of your health, but doesn't kill you, and you get the evasion boost, which could be good, because they might miss the next attack, but you definitely do not want to risk that. Otherwise, it's just like it could help you, survive some attacks, especially if you're getting attacked by like multiple attackers. But for that, I would rather have an AoE move. I would rather, just attempt to kill the attacker. I would say that in all the dungeons that don't limit your level, like don't start you at level 5, you're probably going to be strong enough to just kill the regular enemies with 1 or 2 attacks anyway. Unless you're doing like a low level run, which I'm not really considering this tier list for that low level run. I'm just using this for like general gameplay. I guess if you find those like special Pokemon with the crest above their heads. I don't know what they're called. I'm sure they have a special name, but I just don't know it off the top of my head. Then these rhythm abilities could be pretty good for that, and it could be okay for a boss fight as well. But ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of it. And I say these rhythm abilities, I'm going to go ahead and say that defensive rhythm I'm putting in the same boat as evasive rhythm. I think it's a little better to increase your defense than your evasion, because if you increase your defense, then the odds of the next attack killing you might be even lower than evasive rhythm. And I guess it kind of depends. Like, if you get hit for like 90% of your HP, you would rather have evasive rhythm. If you're getting hit for 50% of your HP, you would rather have defensive rhythm, because you'll guarantee live the next attack with defensive rhythm, versus you will have a chance to live the next attack with evasive rhythm. But like, again, I feel like if you're in a dungeon where things are doing 90% of your health and damage, I don't necessarily think you should be playing that dungeon right now. The last sort of rhythm ability, I know that it's not necessarily a rhythm ability, but it has that same sort of effect, is, if I can find it. I'm really bad at finding things. Riled Up. So what Riled Up does is when you get attacked, your attack and special attack go up. And you know what? That's actually not bad for instances where you're fighting that sort of crest enemy or a boss, and you get attacked, and you're gonna do more damage on your next hit. It could help you cleave through that enemy pretty quickly. So nothing really bad to say about it. It's just that, I would rather personally have something that helps me do more damage, or try to do a strategy that does more damage than to rely on Riled Up. Next, I'm going to put, not in the same sort of vein as rhythm ability, I'm going to put Notorious Fasting. Now, Notorious Fasting, some people might say, wait a minute, I thought Notorious Fasting would be like super broken. And you know what? If one of the effects of it were not the case, I'm, without a doubt, I would say that this is the best rare quality in the game. But let's just go ahead and talk about it. What it does is, when your belly reaches 0, you will not take damage. However, you will not passively restore health. What this will do, essentially, is it means that you don't have to bring apples. You don't have to bring any sort of food item that, will increase your belly. And that's actually great. You get to increase your inventory space and your survivability in a dungeon, your longevity in a dungeon, by a lot if you have this. You don't have to rely on finding apples. You don't have to stack your inventory before going into a dungeon with apples. And in dungeons that don't let you bring your items, I think that would be Joyous Tower, Purity Forest. I think every other dungeon lets you bring items. But anyway, you don't have to necessarily worry about finding those apples. But the trade-off is that you will not be able to restore your health when you're at 0 belly. To me, that's like, I don't want to stay at 0. I don't want to stay not being able to restore my health. I hate sandstorm and hail, because I walk through it and I can't restore my health, and I get pelted with damage, which is really not fun for me, especially, I don't know, it's going to force you to use your Oran berries. So, for this, you could essentially trade your apples for Oran berries, which is okay. That's a good trade. I would rather have to use orange berries than have to use apples, personally. But even still, it's like, I don't know. I don't want to chill out at 0 health. I think I'd rather probably eat an apple and be able to passively restore my health. But like, I could see where this has its places when you're gonna have a limited inventory, or when you don't necessarily want to trust that you're gonna be able to find food. And that's also where I would say that this is kind of an outclassed ability, because there are 2 other rare qualities that are related to, well, I guess 3, but 2 that are majorly related to your belly, and I think that they are both better. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. These are going to be the last 2, and they're going to be kind of paired together in this part of the tier list. First I'm going to put XP boost, and then next I'm going to put where is it? Moving up. I'm going to talk about these 2 together. I think that at the beginning of the game, if this is like the first or second rare quality you come upon, when you are feeding rainbow gummies or DX gummies to like your first 2 starters, and you're planning to use those starters for a large portion of the game, I'm sure you're probably going to be planning to use them at least until you beat Rayquaza. But if you're planning to use them after that as well, then XP boost and moving up are both great. I would definitely recommend them if you get them early on. If you don't get them early on, then they're usually not quite as good. I would say that like once you're past like level 30, 40 sort of area, it's like, I don't know, unless you're grinding to get to level 99, 100. I don't know what the cap is in this game. I think it's 100 like every other. I think it's 100 like every other game. But like, unless you're trying to do that to increase your chances to recruit enemy Pokemon, then it's kind of not really that worth it, because by the time you get to level 40 or 50 and you have like the best moves possible for your Pokemon, you're pretty much as strong as you need to be. You don't need to get to level 100 for a lot of these dungeons, and like the hardest dungeons in the game drop your level to level 5 anyway as you start the dungeons. So like, experience boost is not going to be great for preparing for those. Now, in those dungeons, I believe it does affect the amount of experience that you get. So that would be actually pretty good, because you can learn some of the better moves for that Pokemon a little quicker, like on the earlier floors of the dungeon, or just be able to learn them at all. Because, your experience is kind of limited by your resources. But even then, like, you probably still won't be able to get it to a very high level, and you probably don't want to stay and grind to get to a high level, because you're limited on the food that you can eat. You're limited on the health restoring items that you'll have, and it's just gonna be a massive pain, I think, to do that grind. Moving up has a similar sort of issue. Like, once your moves are very powerful as is, you don't really need it that much. You can also use things to power up your moves, like a power points up elixir. I don't know exactly what the item's called, but there are items that boost your moves PP. There are items that boost your moves attack power and the accuracy, and you could spam those on moves that you're planning on using. So like Blizzard would be a great example, because I think almost every team could fit Blizzard, because it's just a great move. Other very commonly used moves would be like Thunderbolt. I don't know, maybe Earth Power, depending on the types of Pokemon that you like to use, and you know, so on and so forth. And you could just try to boost those moves like that. So making it so you don't necessarily need moving up, but moving up is still pretty good. Again, I would prefer something that helps my longevity or my attacking power in a dungeon, but moving up is still okay. It's always good to have extra move experience and keep powering up your moves, because your moves are important. You want them to be powerful.